I still remember the sound of that battering ram. Boom, boom, boom. Like the devil himself was knocking on our door. It was still dark out. That weird hour right before sunrise when the streets are quiet, the air heavy with dust and heat. I was half asleep on the couch in Reese's trap house, red light from the TV flickering across the room, a gun sitting right next to the ashtray. Then came the scream. Police! Get down! Get the fuck down! Glass shattered. The front door flew off the hinges. I saw red dots dancing across the walls, rifles up, boots stomping through the hallway. Reese barely had time to grab his shirt before they were on him. 6 officers, masks on, yelling over each other. One slammed him to the ground. Another pinned his face to the tile with a knee. Where's the stash, huh? Where's the dope, motherfucker? I froze for a split second. That kind of shock that makes the world go silent. Then instinct kicked in. I jumped out the back window, rolled across the dirt, scraped my forearms raw, and ran. Helicopters overhead. Dogs barking. Sirens wailing from every corner. I cut through the alley behind Carson Street, heart punching my ribs like it wanted out. I could still hear the shouts, the screams of the homies getting dragged out, the chaos echoing off the walls. The block that always felt untouchable was burning under blue lights. You're watching Tales from the Block. Hit that like button and subscribe. I got real stories from the streets for you. I grew up on that same block they just raided, 146th and Compton Avenue. We called it Bloodline Row. Red rags on every porch, tags sprayed across every wall, Pyru till we die. To me, Reese wasn't just the leader. He was the reason half of us were still breathing. He took me in when I was 16, fresh out of juvie, with nothing but a chipped phone and anger issues. He said, if you gonna ride with the block, you ride with heart. Ain't no halfway loyalty, Saint. You die behind your word. And I believe that. We all did. That night after I escaped, I hid out in an old garage 2 blocks down, shaking, dirty, shirt soaked in sweat. Tone showed up an hour later, eyes wild, chest heaving, holding his Glock like it was part of his hand. Bro, they got Reese, he said, voice breaking. They got him, Mikey Duray, even Shorty. Everybody, man. He kicked a bucket across the floor, punched the wall till his knuckles split. They dragged Reese out like he was some punk. On the ground, cameras all up in his face. Fox 11 already out there. I could barely process it. Reese our rock gone. The man who ran every hustle, who taught us to move smart, was sitting in a police van in handcuffs. Tone paced like a caged pit bull. They ain't just locking him up, bro. They trying to kill the whole set. They got warrants, names, addresses. They coming for us next. He wasn't wrong. Every phone was probably tapped. Every street corner watched. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't since I was a kid, fear. Real, raw fear. The sun came up, and the block looked like a war zone. Cops still everywhere. News vans, flashing lights. Yellow tape fluttering in the wind. Old ladies crying on porches. Kids peeking through curtains. We crept through the back streets, faces covered, staying in the shadows. Mikey met us behind the liquor store. He was shaking worse than me. They took everything, he said. Reese's crib, the stash, even the cars. They froze the accounts too. Man, they ain't playing. Tone spit on the ground. Then we ain't playing either. I looked at him, already knowing that look in his eyes. That same look I saw the night his brother got shot by the Crips. The look that said, somebody gotta pay. But I wasn't ready for war. Not yet. I was just trying to survive. Still, in the hood, survival and pride don't mix easy. We laid low that whole day, watching the footage on Mikey's cracked phone. News anchors calling us the most dangerous gang in South Central. Helicopter shots of cops dragging red flag brothers across the pavement. Then they showed Reese, face down, cuffs tight, blood on his lip. And the cop holding him down, laughing, actually laughing. Tone lost it. He slammed his fist on the table, knocking over the ashtray. Nah, I can't watch this shit. You see that? You see that, Saint? They humiliated him. They made him look weak. That's our king, man. They can't do him like that. His words hit me hard. I wanted to say something calm, something smart, but all that came out was anger. Yeah, they crossed a line. That was the moment everything changed. We started hearing rumors that some snitch inside the set tipped off the feds, that the raid was planned for months, that someone close to Reese sold him out for a deal. Tone kept saying he'd find out who. Mikey said we should get out of town. I just sat there, torn between both sides, because part of me still believed we could fix this. But deep down, another part, darker, louder, wanted blood. Later that night, we snuck back to the block to see what was left. The air smelled like smoke and gun oil. Doors busted open, cars towed, red flags torn down. It didn't even feel like home anymore. We found Lil Boo standing on the corner, eyes red from crying. He was just 16, wearing an oversized red hoodie that dragged past his knees. They took my brother, he said he had warrants. He ain't even in the set like that. Tone handed him a cigarette. Ain't no difference to them, lil man. You from Bloodline Row, that's all they see. That line stuck with me. That's all they see. To them, we were just another statistic, another file, another mugshot, another raid to put on the evening news. But to us, this was our whole world. As we stood there, a patrol car slowed down at the corner. 2 cops inside, one with his arm hanging out the window, smirking. You boys still hanging out? He said. Didn't get the message this morning? Tone stepped forward. Yeah, we got it. Loud and clear. Good, the cop said, tapping his badge. Stay out of trouble. Wouldn't want to come back for cleanup duty. Then he drove off laughing. Tone's jaw tightened. They think this is funny. Mikey grabbed his arm. Don't, bro. Not now. But Tone was gone inside. I could see it in his eyes. That war had already started in his mind. We went back to the garage. Tone started loading clips. Mikey sat in the corner, hands shaking. I lit a cigarette and stared at the cracked window, watching blue lights flash in the distance. This ain't the move, I finally said. They got tanks, choppers, feds. You trying to go toe-to-toe with that? Tone looked at me like I'd betrayed him. I ain't scared of no badge. They bleed like we do. They humiliated Reese. That's a death sentence. Reese would tell us to fall back, I said. Tone slammed his gun on the table. Reese ain't here, Saint. We are. You want to just sit and cry? You think they stop in here? They come in for all of us. For our moms, our cousins, our name. You gonna let that slide? The room fell quiet. The only sound was the low hum of a fan and my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I didn't answer him, maybe because I didn't have an answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Reese on that floor, red lights flashing across his face. I heard his voice in my head. If you gone ride with the block, you ride with heart. But what does loyalty mean when the block's already burning? I stepped outside, walked down the alley, and looked up at the sky. Helicopters still circling, their spotlights slicing through the clouds. The smell of smoke hung thick. I thought about my mama, how she used to beg me to get out. Trey, one day that block you love so much gone eat you alive. I never believed her. Now I wasn't so sure. By sunrise, Tone was already gone. Left a note scrawled on a ripped page from a Bible. Ain't no peace without payback. I found it sitting next to a loaded Glock. Mikey looked at me, panic in his eyes. He's gonna do something stupid, bro. I sighed, grabbed the gun, tucked it under my hoodie. Yeah, I said, and we can't let him do it alone. We walked out of that garage, knowing we weren't coming back the same. The line between surviving and dying for pride had just disappeared. And somewhere deep inside, I knew this wasn't just about Reese anymore. It was about everything the streets ever took from us. We thought we were fighting for the block, but the truth was the block was already lost. Tone didn't wait. By the time the sun hit the rooftops, word was already spreading through the block. He hit a cop car the night before, rolled up on it while they were parked outside the projects, dumped half a clip, and vanished into the alleys. Nobody got killed, but the message was clear. Everywhere you looked that morning, there were squad cars, drones, and helicopters cutting through the heat haze. The block felt like an occupied zone. Even the air felt different, heavier, tighter, like the city itself was holding its breath. Me and Mikey stayed low in an abandoned duplex off Palmer Avenue. One of those half-burned out spots where the paint peels off the walls and rats run through the pipes. We kept the curtains closed, whispering every word. Tone came around noon, shirt drenched in sweat, eyes red, breathing like he just ran from hell itself. He threw his gun on the table, cracked a bottle of Hennessy, and downed half of it in one go. "They scared now," he said, smirking. "They gon' think twice before stepping foot on Bloodline Row again." I stared at him, silent. Mikey looked pale. "Tone, you crazy?" I said finally. "You just made us target number one. You think they ain't coming harder now?" He shrugged. "Let him. I ain't running. Not no more." He was past reasoning. His voice had that fire I hadn't heard since the wars with the Crips back in 19. But this time was different. This wasn't street politics. This was suicide. The raids came harder. Day after day, unmarked cars rolled through, pulling kids off corners, kicking down doors. They brought dogs, shields, and news cameras. Every move they made was for the show. They called it Operation Clean Sweep. We called it war. Every night, we heard boots echoing down the alley, radios crackling, glass breaking. They didn't care who got caught in the crossfire. One night, they raided old Mrs. Daniels' house. 73 years old, barely walking, just because her nephew wore red sometimes. They threw her to the floor, tore her living room apart, left her bleeding from her wrists. Tone saw it happen. I think that's when he truly snapped. We met in the garage again, candles flickering, the smell of gun oil heavy in the air. Mikey was shaking, clutching his phone. "We can't keep this up. They're locking everybody up, Tone. They got D-Ray facing 30 years. Reese ain't even had his hearing yet. Bro, we gotta chill before it's too late." Tone slammed his hand on the table. "Too late? You seen what they doing? They killing us slow. You think I'm gonna sit here while they stomp on everything Reese built?" He pointed at the cracked window, where sirens flashed red and blue through the glass. "They making a movie out there, man. We just extras in it." Tommy flipped the script. "What you talking about?" I asked. He leaned forward, voice low, eyes wild. "I got something planned. Real shit. They rolled deep every Friday near Florence Avenue, running sweeps. We hit one of those convoys. Hit him where it hurts." Mikey's jaw dropped. "You out of your damn mind. You trying to start a war with the LAPD?" Tone smiled. "We're already started, lil bro." For a second, I wanted to grab him, shake him, tell him to stop. But part of me, the part that watched Reese get dragged out, the part that saw that cop laughing, wanted the same thing. It wasn't logic. It was emotion, rage. So I said nothing. The next few days were tense. The neighborhood was under constant watch, drones buzzing, detectives questioning everyone. Even the dealers stopped hustling. The streets were quiet in that way. That meant something was coming. We spent those days preparing, loading mags, scouting routes, studying patrol patterns. Tone was methodical, like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. He even painted over his tattoos, "We're all black" instead of red. "Tonight we ghost," he said. The plan was simple, at least in his mind. An unmarked van would drive past Florence, park near the corner store. When the convoy rolled through, we'd hit it, fast and loud, then disappear into the side alleys. Me, Tone, and Mikey. That was it. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Reese, about how he'd told us violence without purpose just feeds the enemy. But I also remembered his other words, "Never let them make you kneel." By 3 a.m., we were in the van, hearts pounding, guns ready. The city was silent except for the hum of distant sirens and the buzz of the streetlights. Tone sat in the front seat, humming to himself, fingers drumming the steering wheel. "You ready, Saint?" I nodded, even though I wasn't. When the first patrol SUV turned the corner, everything slowed down. Tone gripped the wheel. Mikey whispered, "Yo, this ain't right." Then Tone floored it. The van shot forward, screeching around the corner. We blocked the road, doors flying open. I jumped out first, rifle raised, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear anything else. "Move!" Tone shouted. The cops barely had time to react before gunfire erupted. Glass shattered, tires blew, engine smoked. I ducked behind the door, muzzle flashes lighting the night. It was chaos, pure, unfiltered chaos. The sound of bullets against metal, the smell of burning rubber, the echo of screams. Then it was over. Tone fired one last shot, hit the siren, and laughed like a man who'd finally lost his mind. Yeah, you see that. They ain't gods, man. They bleed like us. We jumped back in the van, tires screeching, speeding through side streets as sirens erupted behind us. Helicopters appeared minutes later, sweeping searchlights across the rooftops. We ditched the van behind an old warehouse, ran through backyards, jumped fences, hearts still racing. When we finally stopped, catching our breath, Mikey fell to his knees, trembling. "You know what we just did?" he said. "We just declared war on the whole damn city." Tone lit a cigarette, hands still shaking. "Good." By morning, the whole block knew. By noon, it was all over the news. 3 suspects ambush LAPD patrol convoy in Compton. 2 officers injured. Massive manhunt underway. They didn't show our faces, but we knew the streets were talking. And when the streets talk, it never stays quiet. That day, every corner felt dangerous. Unmarked cars everywhere. Police walking with rifles out. Kids stopped playing ball. The women kept their blinds shut. Even the dealers stopped blasting music. That's how you knew it was bad. Mikey kept pacing the garage. "We gotta leave, bro, get out of town before they find us." Tone shook his head. "Leave? Nah." We doubled down. They hit our people for years. It's our turn now. I sat there, silent, trying to ignore the dread clawing in my stomach. The thing about war, real war, is it don't end with pride or revenge. It ends with funerals. But you only learn that when it's too late. That night, Tone went out again. Said he was meeting a connect. I didn't trust it. Something about the way he said it. Too calm, too certain. He didn't come back till dawn. Smelled like gasoline. "What you do?" I asked. He grinned. "They gonna know who run these streets." An hour later, news broke. A patrol car torched on the 405. They called it domestic terrorism. Tone called it balance. Mikey started crying, real tears, shaking. "You don't see it, do you? They ain't scared. They furious. They gon' flood this whole hood. They gon' burn us alive." Tone didn't even look up. Then let him try. 2 days later, they did. Helicopters roared over the rooftops, shining spotlights like daylight. Dozens of cars rolled in, sirens blaring. They weren't arresting anymore. They were hunting. Tear gas, flashbangs, rubber bullets. They hit every house that ever wore red. We hid in the basement of the duplex, coughing, covering our mouths with shirts. Smoke filled the air. Through the cracks in the boards, I saw cops dragging kids out, slamming them on the curb. They weren't just after Tone. They wanted all of us gone. Mikey whispered, "This is our fault." Tone looked at him cold. "Nah, this is theirs. They made us like this." He picked up his gun and checked the clip. "I ain't going out on my knees." That night, something broke inside me. I realized the block I loved was turning into a graveyard. Cops on one side, brothers on the other, and me stuck in the middle, watching it all burn. We went outside after midnight. The sky glowed red from the fires. You could smell gunpowder in the air. Tone stood in the middle of the street, shirt off, chest heaving, red rag tied around his arm. "This is our block," he shouted to no one, "and they'll never take it." Mikey started crying again. "Tone, stop. You gonna get us killed." Tone turned around, eyes wild, veins showing in his neck. "Ain't no us anymore, Mikey. Ain't no peace. Ain't no home." He fired 2 shots into the air. Sirens answered him instantly. We ran. Back alleys, broken fences, dogs barking. The whole city was awake. We ducked into an old corner store, boarded up, long abandoned. Inside smelled like rot and dust. Tone sat against the wall, gun in his lap, breathing heavy. Mikey curled up by the door, muttering prayers. And me? I just stare at my hands, still shaking, still smelling like gunpowder. That's when it hit me, everything we'd lost. Reese, the homies. The block. The kids who'd never see a normal day again. And for what? A few minutes of revenge? A headline? Tone didn't see it that way. He looked up at me, grinning through the madness. We made him feel it, bro. We made the whole damn city feel it. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that all we did was feed the fire. But before I could speak, we heard engines outside, a convoy rolling up. Mikey's eyes went wide. They found us. Tone stood up, cocked his gun, and smiled. Then let's make it count. I looked at him, at Mikey, at the flickering light coming through the boards. And I thought about Reese, about how he used to say the streets don't give you peace, just pauses between wars. Maybe he was right. Maybe there was never going to be peace for people like us. But standing there, I made a silent promise. If I made out of that night, I was done. No more blood. No more lies. No more pretending the block was worth dying for. Outside, the sirens grew louder. Shadows moved across the windows. Tone lifted his gun. I took one last breath and whispered, God, don't let it end like this. Then the door exploded. Flashbangs, shouts, light, smoke, and the war for the block truly began. When the war started, it didn't start with an announcement. No warning, no talk. Just the sound of something breaking the silence, like thunder that don't wait for rain. That morning, the block felt too quiet. Even the pigeons that usually sat on the wires were gone. I stood on the porch of my aunt's house, hoodie up, watching the street. There was this heavy air, like the neighborhood knew something was coming. You ever feel that? That pressure in your chest before the world flips upside down? Yeah, that was it. We'd been plotting all week, low-key rides through the east side, looking for cops off duty, trying to track down who set up that raid. But no matter how deep we dug, we hit walls. The feds came in clean, too clean. Someone inside had fed them everything. The warehouse, the stash, even the safe house. I kept thinking about Tyrese, our leader. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face pressed against that cop car hood, lights flashing red and blue over the blood-colored bandana tied around his wrist. He didn't even fight. That's what broke me. He knew it was over the moment they rolled up. Now it was on us. Marcus came through that morning, black hoodie, black gloves, eyes darker than asphalt. It's time, he said, voice low. We moved in silence. No shouting, no wild energy, just tension thick enough to choke on. The plan was simple. Hit their patrol routes, send a message. Not to the whole city, just the ones who came to our block and took our people like trophies. The sun started to dip, and the world turned gold for a second. That calm before the madness. I remember walking down Florence Avenue, the sound of our sneakers scraping concrete, and the faint hum of an old Ice Cube track playing from someone's open window. Then the first crack split the air. It wasn't loud like in the movies. It was sharp, echoing down the street like glass breaking. The next one came from the other side, and suddenly, the block lit up. People screaming, cars swerving, sirens flaring up from somewhere down the corner. I ducked behind a burned-out sedan, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. We didn't see faces, just shadows moving through the chaos. Uniforms flashing between the flicker of streetlights and muzzle flashes. Every sound blurred together. The yelling, the tires screeching, the thump of boots on pavement. Marcus was beside me, yelling something, but I couldn't hear him. I caught glimpses, him leaning out, his hoodie flaring like wings, fire lighting his face for half a second. Then he ducked back down. It wasn't a battle. It was a message painted in smoke and fear. And just like that, it was over. The noise faded, replaced by the buzzing of streetlights and the distant echo of sirens retreating. We slipped away through the alleys, hearts still racing. The city felt alive, trembling, watching. Somewhere we knew cameras were rolling, helicopters spinning, narrators calling us monsters. But in that moment, it didn't feel like crime. It felt like payback, the kind that burns slow and deep. That night, we regrouped at Rico's garage. Not the same Rico from other stories. This one was older, quiet, one of those OGs that never left the block, but wasn't on the front lines anymore. His shop smelled like oil and regret. Marcus threw his hoodie on a chair, breathing heavy. We got their attention, he said, but I wasn't celebrating. I couldn't shake that uneasy feeling, like we just pulled the pin on something we couldn't control. Something's off, I said. They knew where to be. They were already circling. He looked at me like I was paranoid. Man, they everywhere now. Cameras, drones, all that. Ain't no secrets. But I knew better. You grow up in the block, you start to recognize patterns. When someone's feeding information, it moves a certain way. Too precise, too fast. While they argued, I walked outside. The sky was orange with city light, smoke still hanging over the neighborhood. I could hear helicopters in the distance, low, searching. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe. A distorted voice came through low, calm, familiar in a way that twisted my gut. You need to stop before you end up like Tyrese. I froze. Who this? But the line went dead. I stared at the screen, hands shaking. The way he said Tyrese's name, it wasn't a cop. It was someone who knew him. Someone close. When I went back inside, Marcus was gone. Only two of the younger guys were left, counting rounds and arguing over whose cousin got locked up. Where's Marcus? I asked. They shrugged, said he had to make a call. That's when it hit me. Marcus was the only one who knew every move we'd made since the raid. Every ride, every stash, every name. He was the one that pushed us to hit back tonight. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to believe it. Not him. Not the kid I grew up with. The one who took his first punch right next to me behind the middle school. The one who swore on his life he'd never fold. But when the streets start whispering your name, you better listen. The next few days it got worse. Police everywhere. Helicopters like mosquitoes. They raided 3 more houses on our block. Took cousins, friends, anyone who wore red. And Marcus? He went ghost. No calls. No word. Just disappeared. That's when I knew. I started moving quiet. No phones, no big talk. I hit the corners at night, listening, watching. Every time I turned, I felt eyes on me. Even the kids stopped playing ball on the street. Mothers looked out their windows like they were watching a funeral that hadn't happened yet. That's what the block does. It senses death before it knocks. One night, I found Marcus' car parked behind the old liquor store, the one that burned down years ago. Engine still warm. I waited in the shadows, listening to the hum of a distant police scanner through the cracked window. He came out 10 minutes later, phone still in hand, his face pale under the streetlight. He didn't see me. I heard him talking, soft, careful. Yeah, I told him everything. Just keep my brother out of it. My chest went cold. That's when the noise of a city faded away. No cars, no wind, just my heartbeat. He was selling us out to save family. And as much as I wanted to hate him, a part of me understood. Because this life don't give you clean choices. It gives you pain dressed up as loyalty. I stepped out of the shadows, just enough for him to see me. His face froze, eyes wide. The phone slipped from his hand. Yo, it ain't what you think. I didn't say a word. Just looked at him, both of us standing under that flickering light, ghosts of what we used to be. He took a step forward. Please, bro. I did what I had to do. I turned away, my throat tight, every memory of our childhood flashing through my head. The nights we hid from cops, the times we shared food when there was nothing else, the dreams we swore we'd live to see. And now we were standing on opposite sides of a line that couldn't be erased. That night, I couldn't sleep. The city kept moving, sirens, dogs barking, the endless hum of streetlight buzz. I sat by the window, watching the shadows stretch across the walls. In this world, betrayal don't always look like someone stabbing you in the back. Sometimes it's a friend trying to protect someone else and killing your trust instead. The next day, word spread fast. The cops were moving again. Another raid. Another round. Marcus had vanished for good this time, and nobody knew if he ran or got taken. But I knew the truth. The block was about to explode again. Not against the cops this time, but against itself. And deep down, I knew that when the sun set, blood would fall both ways. Because once trust breaks on the block, There's no fixing it, only surviving it. By the time the next sunrise hit the block, it didn't feel like home no more. The streets looked the same, cracked sidewalks, graffiti walls, that same busted streetlight flickering by the liquor store. But something inside it changed. You could feel in the air. Nobody laughed, nobody hung out. Every face looked like it was carrying a secret. The war with the cops had turned into something else, a cold silence spreading through the neighborhood. Word was getting around. Somebody from our side had been feeding them moves, addresses, plans. Every whisper came back to one name, Marcus. But people didn't say it out loud yet. Not until someone saw him roll through in a clean black Charger 2 nights after the raid. Brand new rims. No tags. No explanation. You don't show up shining when the block's bleeding. Not unless you're trying to make a statement. That's when I knew the end was coming. I was sitting in the back room of Rico's shop again, listening to the hum of the fridge and the muffled sound of the city outside. My mind felt like static. Memories, doubts, everything tangled up. I've been trying to reach Marcus all week. Nothing. Every time I called, straight to voicemail. Every time I asked around, people got quiet. Rico walked in, wiping grease off his hands. You still thinking about that boy? I nodded. He sighed. You know, sometimes loyalty will kill you faster than a bullet. I didn't answer. I just looked at the photo on the wall. Me, Marcus, and Tyrese years back. We were barely teenagers, standing in front of that same garage, grinning like we owned the world. Back then, the block was all we knew, the only family some of us had. Rico leaned against the table. You hear what's coming tonight? I looked up. The hitting back. Police been rolling deep every night since the raid, but tonight they bringing something bigger. They want blood. He said it quiet, like he didn't want the walls to hear. Who told you that? I asked. He hesitated. Someone I still trust. That's when my stomach twisted, because trust didn't mean much anymore. As the sun dropped, the block came alive again. Engines rumbling, dogs barking, people moving fast, but not saying much. I stood outside with Tino and Dre, 2 of the younger ones still holding the line. We're gonna hit them before they hit us, Tino said, bouncing on his heels like a boxer. Ain't no more waiting. I didn't say anything. I watched the street instead. Every car that slowed down, every window that looked too dark. Then I saw it. That black Charger, creeping down the avenue like a ghost. Marcus was behind the wheel. Hood up. No music. Just rolling slow, eyes scanning the corners. He looked like he didn't belong here anymore. Too clean, too calm. Tino clenched his fists. Man, we ending this tonight. I held him back. Not like this. I talked to him first. He laughed bitterly. Talk? After what he did? Yeah, I said, looking dead at him. Because that's my brother, and I need to hear him say it. That night, I went alone. No walk-up, no mosque. Just me and the sound of the city humming under my feet. I found Marcus at the old basketball court behind the projects, the same place we used to run drills as kids, back when the biggest thing we worried about was getting jumped for our sneakers. He was sitting on the bleachers, hoodie half off, looking tired, like life had drained him dry. You really came, he said when he saw me. I had to. He looked away, rubbing his hands together. I figured you would. You always been the one that couldn't let go. Why'd you do it, Marcus? I asked. My voice came out lower than I meant. Why'd you sell out the set? He laughed. Not loud, but broken. You think I wanted to? You think I planned it? Then what was it? Money? Fear? He looked up at me, eyes red from lack of sleep. It was family, bro. My little sister. They had her caught up in some mess. Said if I didn't play ball, they'd bury her in it. What was I supposed to do? The words hit me like a punch. I wanted to hate him, to throw every name, every curse, every memory in his face. But the pain in his voice, it sounded too real. He continued, You think they just raided us cause of me? Nah, they were already watching Tyrese. Already got half the set bugged. I just gave them enough to keep her safe. I stepped closer, feeling the weight of every choice we ever made. And what about the rest of us? You think we didn't have family too? You think we didn't have people to protect? I know, he said softly, and that's why I never meant for it to go this far. We stood there, both breathing heavy, the sound of distant sirens mixing with the buzz of streetlights. The court felt haunted, like ghosts were sitting on the bleachers, watching us replay the same mistakes they made years ago. "You broke the code, Marcus," I said finally. "Ain't no way back from that." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know." Then he looked up at me, eyes calm now. "But you gotta ask yourself, what you gonna do about it?" Before I could answer, the whole block lit up. Sirens, headlights, the echo of tires screeching. Marcus froze. They found me. From the end of the street, two unmarked SUVs pulled up fast, doors swinging open. The sound of commands cutting through the air. "Move," someone yelled. I grabbed Marcus by the arm, dragging him toward the fence. "We gotta go." We sprinted through the alley, the world flashing red and blue behind us. The air smelled like metal and rain. Every corner felt like a trap. I could hear radios shouting, "Two suspects on foot." "South Alley." Marcus stumbled, breathing hard. "Leave me." "Shut up and run." We cut through backyards, jumped fences, slipped past trash bins. The noise behind us kept getting closer. Helicopters spun above, lights sweeping like a blade across the rooftops. We finally ducked into an abandoned apartment complex, the same one we used to hide in as kids when things got hot. The walls were covered in graffiti, paint peeling, rats scurrying. Marcus leaned against the wall, gasping. "You shouldn't have come back for me." I turned on him. "You think I could just let you die out there?" He shook his head. "You don't get it, man. I already made my choice." Then he pulled something from his pocket, a small flash drive. "Everything they wanted, it's on here. Every name, every location. But if they get this, it's over for everyone left on the block." He looked me dead in the eye. "Take it." I stared at him. "Why me?" "Because you still believe in something," he said. "Even if it kills you." Before I could say anything else, the sound of boots echoed down the hallway. Voices shouting, the building shaking under the pressure of the raid. Marcus shoved the drive into my hand. "Go." "What about you?" He smiled faintly. "Somebody's got to hold him off." "Marcus." But he was already moving, pulling his hood up, stepping out into the hall like a man walking into his fate. I slipped through the back exit, my chest burning, my mind spinning. Outside, the rain had started. Light, but enough to blur the city lights into colors that looked almost beautiful. Behind me, I heard shouts, then silence. I didn't stop running until I hit the train tracks 2 blocks down. I crouched behind a freight car, catching my breath, clutching that flash drive like it was the last piece of my soul. The city was alive again. Sirens, engines, thunder rolling somewhere far off. But all I could think about was Marcus walking back into that building, knowing he wasn't coming out. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a soldier. I felt like a ghost, trapped between what I owed and what I'd lost. I sat there until the sky started turning gray again. The rain mixed with the smell of smoke from somewhere up the block. I knew the news would spin it like always. Gang member killed in police shootout. They'd never say his name, never tell his side. But I knew. Marcus didn't die a snitch. He died trying to fix a mess none of us should have been in to begin with. When I finally made it back to the neighborhood, it looked different. Burnout houses, caution tape, faces I didn't recognize watching from doorways. Tina was waiting for me by the corner store, hood up, eyes red. "You heard?" he said. "Yeah." They said Marcus turned on the cops at the end. Tried to lead him away. I nodded slowly. He did what he had to do. Tina looked confused. "You mean you ain't mad?" I stared at the street. "I've been mad my whole life. It never brought anybody back." He didn't say anything after that, just nodded like he finally understood. That night, I sat on the roof of Rico's shop again, the city lights flickering below. I pulled the flash drive out of my pocket, staring at it. Inside it was everything. The names, the deals, the dirty money. Enough to burn the whole system down. But I couldn't decide what to do. Hand it over to the media? Destroy it? Keep it as leverage? Every option came with blood attached. And that's when I realized something. The streets don't end when the shooting stops. They just change shape. The war moves from the corners to the conscience. From who you fight to what you can live with after. The block was quiet again. Too quiet. Somewhere far off, I could still hear that faint echo of police radios, like ghosts whispering across the city. I knew Act 5 was already writing itself. Not with bullets this time, but with choices. Because now, it wasn't about surviving. It was about what comes after. The sun came up slow that morning, like it didn't want to see what was left. The light hit the rooftops, slid down the cracked walls, and spilled over the block like a ghost walking home after a long night. I sat there on Rico's roof, watching it crawl across the street, still holding that flash drive Marcus gave me. The city was quiet. Too quiet. No sirens, no shouting, no music. Just wind sliding through the alleyways and the soft hum of life trying to return. But the block didn't heal. It never really does. It just learns how to keep breathing after the storm passes. Down below, kids were out again, bouncing a half-flat basketball, trying to act like nothing happened. But I could see it in their faces. They knew. The block remembers everything. It don't forget who fell, who snitched, who stood tall. Rico came out onto the roof behind me, his old jacket zipped halfway, a cup of coffee steaming in his hand. "You look like you ain't slept in days," he said. "I haven't." He sat beside me, setting the cup between us. "So what you gonna do with it?" I looked at the flash drive. That little piece of metal felt heavier than any weapon I'd ever carried. "I don't know. Feels like whatever I do, somebody's gonna bleed for it." He nodded slowly. "That's how this life works. Ain't no clean choices." We sat there a long while just listening to the city breathe. Later that day, I walked through the block, hood up, hands in pockets, head low. The faces I passed said everything without words. Some looked at me with respect, others with blame. Everybody had their version of the story already. They said Marcus went out shooting. Some said he sold us out. Others said he died saving us. Truth was somewhere in between, buried under the noise. But on the block, truth don't matter as much as reputation. When I passed the mural wall, I stopped. Someone had already painted Marcus's face next to Tyrese's. Two red halos glowing over their heads. I stood there for a long time, just staring. A voice came from behind me. "You knew him best." It was Tino. Hoodie zipped, eyes tired. "Yeah," I said. "I did." "You think he really flipped?" I shook my head. "He flipped on himself, not on us." Tino frowned. "What's that mean?" "It means he was caught between saving blood and saving family. Either way, somebody was going to die." He looked down, quiet for a moment. "They say the cop's still coming, that they want whoever got that drive." I slipped it from my pocket, let the light hit it for a second, then tucked it back. "They can want all they want. They ain't getting it." Tino nodded like he understood, but I knew he didn't. Not yet. He was still young, still believed this life had winners. That night, I took the drive down to the tracks again, the same place where I'd last seen Marcus alive. The air smelled like wet steel and smoke. I sat there, knees bent, staring at the city lights stretching out like fireflies in the distance. Inside that drive was everything that destroyed us. The evidence, the deals, the names. It was power. Enough to get revenge, to burn every badge that bled us dry. But I kept thinking about Marcus's last words. "You still believe in something." Yeah, I did. But I didn't even know what that something was anymore. I pulled out my lighter, flicked it open, and watched the flame dance in the wind. The metal of the flash drive gleamed in my palm. You ever have a moment where the world feels like it's waiting for your decision? Like everything, every life, every choice, every memory is balanced on one breath? That was me right there. I held the drive close to the flame, but I couldn't do it. Not yet. My mind was spinning with what Marcus died for. His sister. The people still locked up. The kids still growing up thinking the block is all there is. Burning it felt like letting the truth die. But keeping it meant more bodies, more blood. Then I realized, maybe it ain't about choosing between them. Maybe it's about changing the game entirely. 2 days later, I met someone I never thought I would. Detective Alvarez, the one who led the raid that took Tyrese. Latino dude, sharp suit, tired eyes. I'd seen him in courtrooms and mugshots. Never up close. But when he called me, said he wanted to talk off the record, I said yes. We met in a small diner off Crenshaw, the kind of place where nobody asks questions. He sat across from me, hands flat on the table. "You know what this is about," he said. "I got an idea." He nodded toward my pocket. "That drive. We both know it's got names that matter. Not just gang members, cops, politicians, middlemen." I didn't react, just watched his eyes. He continued, "I don't care about street kids shooting each other. I care about the ones pulling strings behind it." "You saying you clean?" I asked. He half smiled. "Nobody clean, but some of us still trying." For a long time, we didn't say anything. Just the sound of a coffee pot refilling and rain tapping on the window. Finally, I said, "You want this drive? You gotta promise me one thing." He leaned in. "What's that?" "No more raids on my block. No more kids getting dragged out their mama's house just 'cause they wearing red. You want justice? Start from the top down, not the bottom up." He studied me, eyes hard. "That's a big ask." I met his stare. "Then don't take it." He sat back, thinking. Then he nodded slowly. "Deal." I slid the flash drive across the table. "You ever cross me," I said quietly, "I'll burn everything." He didn't smile this time. He just picked it up and said, "Fair enough." When he left, I sat there alone for a while, the smell of stale coffee filling the room. I didn't feel like I'd won anything, but for the first time, I felt like something shifted, like maybe we weren't just fighting the streets anymore. Weeks passed. The block stayed tense for a while. Cops still rolled through slow, people still side-eyed each other, but then things started to change. The pressure eased. The sirens came less often. The kids came out earlier, stayed out longer. I started helping Rico fix cars again, just to stay busy. Every now and then, Tino dropped by, asking questions, trying to understand what really happened that night. I told him bits and pieces, enough to keep him curious, but not reckless. He was smart, smarter than we were at his age. Maybe he'd find a different path. Then one evening, out of nowhere, a letter came. No name, no return address. Inside was a single photo, Marcus's sister. Safe, smiling, holding a little girl. On the back, it said, "He kept his promise." I just sat there holding it, staring until the words blurred. For the first time since everything went down, I felt like I could breathe again. Sometimes I walk past that mural where Marcus and Tyrese's faces are painted. People leave candles there now. Kids spray tags around it that say "Block Lives." Every time I look at it, I remember the sound of our laughter before everything got complicated. Back when loyalty was simple and the future still had light in it. Now I tell stories, real ones. The kind people don't read in newspapers. The kind that remind folks that behind every gang member headline, there's a human trying to survive a system built to bury him. The block gave me scars, yeah, but also gave me a voice. So now, when people ask why I tell these stories, I say it's for the ones who ain't here to tell theirs. For Marcus, for Tyrese, for every kid still out there thinking this life is the only way to matter. Last week, I saw Alvarez again. He was sitting in an unmarked car near the corner, window rolled halfway down. He nodded at me. "You kept your word," I said. He nodded back. "So did you." Then he drove off, disappearing into the sunset glow like some kind of ghost of the system. I stood there, watching the streetlights flicker on one by one. The block looked tired but alive, like an old fighter still standing after 12 rounds. I thought about everything that happened, the raids, the betrayals, the choices, and I realized something simple but heavy. The streets don't define us. The choices we make in them do. And maybe that's the real redemption, not escaping the block, but transforming it. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer and just listened. The crickets, the distant bass from a lowrider, the soft laughter of kids playing tag under the streetlights. For once, it felt peaceful. I took a deep breath and whispered to the night. "We still here." The wind carried it down the street, past the mural, past the shop, past every corner that still held our ghosts. And for a moment, I swear I could hear Marcus laughing again. Because in the end, the block remembers everything.